Hello, everyone. Good that you came in here for those that are already the first. This is another stream that we do for our release, the 2022.1, always hard to say. And it's funny because this was initially supposed to be a quality release, kind of fixing existing issues and improving quality overall a bit. But eventually, a lot of features still came in, and that's what we're going to talk about today. I also have with me the whole advocacy crew, basically. So say hi to them as well. Would be great if all of you also, you know the drill, just tell us where you're from. That's always exciting to hear. Just for us also to say hello into the world. And before we start, I just want to make some things clear. Of course, that's also how we announced it. If you have any questions, doesn't need to be related necessarily to the features that we show. Please feel free to ask in the chat. We will try to answer them. Also, this is going to be recorded, of course. So if you have any question, if you have to drop out at some point, just feel free to continue watching right afterwards. All right, crew, are you ready?
We are ready. Let's go.
Ready.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So seemingly, I'm the first from our agenda. So let me also share my screen. Where is it? Here. I will start with a couple of things in Visual Studio. And one of the really cool things that we added for C# is a new context action for global usings. So I picked an example for a test project that we might have. So once you go here, and this can be basically any using, you can just go there, Alt Enter onto it, and I hope you can read it, but the context action says extract global using. That's what we can do. And, normally the kind of best practice or common practice is to use a global using.cs file. And once this happened, we end up with that file. And also all the other C# files that already have that using will just use that. Yeah. So we can introduce global usings, but we can also decide to inline them again. So if you say, okay, this global using statement doesn't make sense or it's not used often enough, then you can just very easily say to inline it again, and then it will go back to all the C# files that are actually using or depend on that global using statement. You can also do other fancy stuff like find usages and all that stuff. But yeah, another thing that also made it to ReSharper and Rider is how to interpret generic attributes. So this is one thing that I was waiting for ages. Meanwhile, I kind of forgot all the places that I wanted to use it. But meanwhile, .NET supports generic attributes. Everything that you have to do is just to make sure that the language version of your project file is set to the correct one. But usually, ReSharper and Rider just suggests that so that you end up with this language version preview. And then you can also have a generic attribute. Okay. Another thing is this one here. That's a minor change, I would say. What we did here is merging the reformat and apply syntax style actions. So once you go Alt Enter, you can just choose it from here, and then everything is code styles are applied, it's reformatted, etc. By the way, one thing, not sure, does the advocacy crew know this shortcut? And I kind of have to show it in Rider maybe. I really love this one shortcut, and you all have to know it. It's called reformat code, and by default it's just Control Alt Enter, and it's like the quicker version that doesn't do code style, etc. That's awesome.
Does that need to have code selected first?
No. I use it all the time. I love it. It's one of my favorite features.
Yeah, it's kind of very close also to just out entering, right? And you can also have a selection, but if you don't have a selection, then it just applies to the whole file.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. That's the part from me for now. Now I hand over to Maarten. Maarten, can I share your screen?
Yeah, go for it. That was quick, by the way.
You're live.
I'm live. Nice. All right, so I'm also going to talk a little bit about some improvements in ReSharper around nullability mainly. You will see that all of these things are also available in Rider because we are sharing a lot of these formatting and language features between the two. So everything you see here will work in Rider, and everything you see in Rider will probably also work in ReSharper. So what I have here is a class where I have a record person that has some nullability annotations. So for example, I'm saying that the email address can be null. It's annotated with this question mark, so it says this can be null. I also have a method called createPerson, and that also takes a non-nullable name. And
Maarten, what is it about this and the release streams that you go into robot voice every time?
Cyber Markdown showed up again.
Yeah,
I'm going to switch to the other browser. I will be back in really almost zero time. I'll be there.
Okay.
Honestly, we do this like 3 times a year, and every single time it goes wrong. Maarten just loves robot voice. It's there. So, anybody know any good jokes to fill the gap? It's probably dangerous asking you a lot because you'll come up with rude jokes. I know you.
It's all about Maarten and the robot voice.
I'm back.
And that sounds much better.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's
so
try
far.
again.
So far. Okay.
It is Windows, so I guess I have to use Edge for all of this.
Okay. Screen is shared.
All right, screen is shared. Let's
robot
continue.
voice not active yet.
Yeah, perfect. Beep boop.
Keep it off.
I'll try this time. All right. So yeah, I have a person that is annotated. Name cannot be null. Email can be null. I have this method as well that where email can be null and name cannot be null. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this createPerson method, give it a name. Let's say Maarten. I'm also going to give it an email address. Could be null because I support nullability there, but I'm just going to put everything there. I'm going to put this in a variable. That's fine. All right, and I'm also going to write something to the console, namely the person.name. Now, so far, everything is good. Everything is working as expected. My name is non-nullable, and I'm actually passing in a reference to a string there. So this is all just working. Now, interestingly enough, if this method was something that you are building and someone else on your team is consuming this from a project where no nullability is enabled, or I use nullability suppression and do something like this, where I pass in null and just say, okay, I don't care whether this is null or not. I'm actually introducing a bug here. This will throw a null reference exception because the name is actually null, even though I have annotated it as not being null. So the best way to go around that is to check name for null, especially if you are sharing this with someone in the team or someone externally who is consuming this API, you will still want to do null checks there. And what we can do is, if the name is null, simply return a new person. And instead of passing in the name that is null, let's just call this one unknown and pass in email as the email address because that is nullable and this might work. So we fixed that. We actually fixed that null reference, even though I'm passing in null. The problem is now ReSharper and the compiler start complaining that I'm doing a null check that is no longer needed there, right? Because we annotated the name as not being nullable. I'm doing a null check, and now ReSharper is complaining about this. One of the new things is that in the options, you can go to options, of course, code inspection settings. We now have a new option where you can say, okay, trust only runtime checks. So ignore all of the annotations that were added, just trust whatever I do in my codes. And if you enable that one, you will see that everything is fine now. We're no longer seeing this redundant null check warning that was there. And we can still use annotations to actually explain to external people how to use this piece of code. Make sense? All right.
Absolutely.
I'm also going to add some
Everyone is muted.
I'm also going to add some self-promotion here. This is just one of the many nullability features in ReSharper. And I actually wrote a blog series over the past couple of weeks about nullability and migrating to nullable reference types. So if you're interested, Google my name, you will find these blog posts. And it's really for half-book types of blog posts that you can follow.
I'm just going to second that. Those Maarten's blog posts there are fantastic. They're really good. So they're a great resource for reading about nullability. So that's some quality, shameless self-promotion there. Well done, Maarten.
Yeah,
Cool.
I agree.
Thank you very much.
I like how Maarten was like, Google me. You'll know who I am. Just Google.
No, at least Google knows who I am, right?
Wait, do you get recognized at airports?
All right, let's let Maarten continue. Continue, Maarten. Go.
Yeah, let's do this. All right, let's maybe skip into the next topic. So there's a couple of other quality of life improvements in terms of nullability in ReSharper, but let's maybe cover something else, and let's cover profiling. So what I have here is an application that is essentially a course management thing that you can use. It's called Contoso University. It's a sample that you can find out there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to performance profile this one using dotTrace from within Visual Studio here. So I'm going to ReSharper profile run startup configuration performance profiling. And what will happen is this code will get compiled and dotTrace will ask me how I want to profile this application. I am going to go with all of the defaults here, but just in case, we have a couple of profiling modes that you can use. Timeline profiling really combines everything together from what we get from the .NET runtime, as well as Windows events logs and things like that. And you can choose between sampling, tracing, line by line, and all of the things that we have there. So I'm going to start this one using timeline profiling. And what you will see is that the application is starting, so it's opening in the browser. And this window that I have here is now connected to the process, listening to whatever is going on my system here in terms of running this application. So I know I have a students page in there. I have some courses in there. And of course, the first clicks here are a bit slow because I still have to make the database connection and everything that is going on there. But if I go to students and search for, let's say, Maarten, am I there? I'm not there. Okay, let's see if we can find Rachel in there. No Rachel in there. I have no idea. I'm just going to search for M. Yes, there's a couple with an M in the name. So I did that, and I'm really interested in what has been going on in this application. So what I'm going to do is get a snapshot and wait. And what will happen is that dotTrace is now processing everything it captured from the .NET process, but also from all of the other subsystems that were running to power this application. And you will see that once this opens, that we get a pretty good overview of what was going on in the application. Meanwhile, I'm going to kill the application. It's no longer needed. Let's just look at the results that are there. So kill this one, wait for data. Yes, there we are. So what you see here is the overview of the entire runtime, whatever happened when I was running the application. Everything is also a filter, which means that if I select a piece on the timeline, all of the other tool windows and all of the other filters will be updated based on what I select there. I'm going to clear all filters because I want to go in there and see what is going on. One of the things that I had was this search that I was really interested in terms of performance. And you will see that this search was this index method here. And if I select that one, you can see the source code there. What you will also see is that it took 3,400 milliseconds to run. Now, if I scope my entire filter to just this method, you will see that from those 3,900 milliseconds, 1,000 were spent running SQL queries. That's quite a lot. I mean, there's some overhead in there, but 1,000 there is not good. So what you can do is enable the SQL queries filter in dotTrace. And what you will see is that it will give you all of the places where SQL queries were run. So you see in the timeline that those places are highlighted. Everything is now also filtered to methods that were running SQL. So you can see that we have some selects going on there using Entity Framework to work with this database. But the more interesting thing is that you can also now see the SQL queries that were actually executed. And we can see that opening the connection took quite some time. And then there's this entire search thing that happens where I'm doing uppercasing and lowercasing and all of that. And that one took a good 66 milliseconds here. It's not super representative. It's a very short demo, but this allows you to filter down from your code to SQL queries and see what is going on there. What is new in this release is that those SQL queries now also are supported when you are using the Microsoft Data SQL clients namespaces. All right, and that's, I think, it for dotTrace that we have here.
That's really awesome, by the way, Maarten. Very cool.
You were this close from becoming a robot again. I heard it.
I'm using Microsoft Edge now. This cannot happen.
Okay.
Before we continue, can I give a shout out to our design team? Because the new splash screens are just awesome. Like if folks want to comment on that or they want to get that stuff, we have like a website where you can go download them. They're fantastic. So just a shout out to our design team.
Absolutely, yeah, they're amazing.
They're all generated as well. That's the cool thing. They're not just designed; they're generated. So the art team actually write code to generate the designs that go for across all the splash screens, and it's very cool.
Yeah. All right, sorry, Maarten, just go ahead.
I think he's done.
Yeah, I'm done. Let's skip to the next one.
Then it's me again, and also another shout out. I think there's one Deftones fan underneath the watchers, but I have another very short one. You see my screen, yeah. So you probably know that we have our ReSharper not just only runs in the background of Rider, but it's also available as a separate command line tool that you can integrate into your CI/CD process. And those we call command line tools, and they are also available as global tools. So you can just install them via .NET tool, etc. And one thing that got added here is, personally, I never checked it out, but it's good to know because I heard it quite often. The SARIF, I have no idea how it's pronounced, but this is another format that we now support through our InspectCode global tool. And you can see in this case, this, by the way, a nice little feature I can show you. Meanwhile, this is just a Markdown file. So you can see here we have like command line tools. And once you have a code fence like this, you can mark it as bash and you can just run the command from right here. And I already did that before, of course. And yeah, that's it. That's the report that gets printed out in SARIF format. And then you can later process that in whatever way you like. Okay, that was a short one. I was not lying. Next one is Rachel, I think. Rachel, are you ready? Can I share? Great,
Yep,
you shared.
Yeah, so another nice little thing that we've added into both ReSharper and Rider is a little bit more support for minimal APIs, which is like now it's all the rage, right, with ASP.NET. So what we have is some auto completion. So if I'm here and I'm doing like this little map post or whatever kind of path that I have, if I start just typing, you'll see I get a lot of auto completion here. So I could pick out my store ID here and then type in something else and keep picking from the list whatever I need to use here. So that's kind of nice that we have the auto completion. It recognizes routes. It scans for routes very much the way it scans for routes in regular APIs with Web API as well. In addition to that, you get the nice navigation that you might expect. If I come to a route and here I go to the stores token and I do a control click, it's going to pop up everything that it could find with stores. And here you could see it kind of grays out the line that I'm in. It even shows that one, but everywhere else as well. So I could see where this route goes. I can navigate to one of these locations, take a look around. And another feature that you'll notice is all of the annotations for the patterns here. So I have patterns, status codes, and annotations within minimal APIs. You probably expect these with the other code constructs. It's been in Rider and ReSharper for some time, but now we also have that as well. If I want to return, I could just do my F12 like you normally would to navigate and go back to a definition. And here I could, again, see this line, which is kind of grayed out, and that line I just came from will be up here at the top. I can just return back to where I was. So we have that first-class navigation that you come to expect. So here in ReSharper, if I pop over to Rider, you basically the same thing, slightly different theme and whatnot over here, but I could still, control click, take a look at my endpoints, navigate to, from, and I get all of the nice auto completion as well. So a lot of good stuff going in there. What else do we have? The endpoints is a somewhat newer feature. So this works regardless of minimal API or regular API. This happens to be a minimal API, but the same thing. I could come in here. I could take a look at any of these particular endpoints. I can open it in the editor. If I come in here and click on localhost, it'll give me my options, and it should actually find stuff that's in your app settings JSON as well. And I could pick out one of these and run it and do all kind of cool stuff like that. And I think in here, that's actually not showing up in here. It was before. That's okay. You can always type in here. And at any time, I got a couple little extra brackets in here, I think. At any time, I could just open this up in an editor. I could run this as a request if I'm running that code and interact with this. So it's really cool how you get to run things right in line, be it Markdown or here with an API. Outside of the endpoints, we're going to go back in time a little bit, but I guess forward in time too. I know a lot of us do have to deal with things like WSDL and XML. We have a lot of enterprise development. Khalid's laughing here. But we do, it's right.
Just let me clean up here with my soap.
Right.
Oh man, give it some rest.
Yeah, it's dad jokes.
Right. You just don't get to have all the new shiny code. So here, if I have a service URL, good old, WSDL, if you haven't done this in a while, I could come in here, click discover. If I click the little icon here, it just takes me to settings, the Rider settings, so I can set that up. So it may take a minute for it to go. It's actually doing the WSDL discovery that it's supposed to do. And then it shows me the service contract. So this was a little like wine ordering service. So I can then add that in. Once I click OK, I will see some UI updates. Might take it a second. I think with all the video stuff we have today, sometimes it slows a little bit down. There we go. And you see services, and I could see that JSON that is generated from this, and as well as a little stub here with my CS code that's been generated. So I could get in there and take a look at everything that the service has to offer. But additionally, since not every service is one out there with a WSDL file, you might just have XML or even something local. So here, if I have a little to-do items, discovery to-do, little XML file that has some WSDL in it. Something locally, perhaps, because I know we're all sharing XML contracts nowadays. It's just the thing, right? And then here, so I get that too. So even if it's like a local URL, that's fine. I get the same service there. So yeah, we giggle, but this is a common thing. People got to do this. So
yeah, bring back the lib folder is what I say. Package management overrated.
Libman. So that's what we have for APIs and web services. So it's the same thing with our to-do list. So that's what I have. And whoever's next can pop in here. Who is next? What do we have? I think it's you, Khalid.
All right. Matthias, if you would so kindly share my screen.
Where are you? Here.
All right.
You're on.
Very cool. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us. As Matthias kind of alluded to at the beginning of the stream, this is kind of a quality release. I think last time I counted, we did like 675 issues tackled, but there are a lot of new features that I think folks will enjoy. Quality also means improvement in your quality of life. So some of the things I can show you here, if I can get my mouse into this screen. everybody knows the new run widget and the new menu that was kind of released in the last version of Rider. One of the things a lot of folks have been asking about is customizing the toolbar. So you can now right click and come to this customization screen, and you can add things. So I know a lot of people want to add, they like to print their code. We all want to, have paper. We want to hold our code. So now you can add a little icon here to print things. So if you want to customize the main toolbar, you can do that now very easily just by right clicking. If you don't want to print things, which I don't know why you wouldn't, I mean, it's great. You can also remove it and kind of go back to default. So that's one of the nice things that's kind of been added. So folks can add any kind of features that they want into the main toolbar.
Khalid, can I add a remote printer at your place, maybe?
yeah. It'll just take a while to kind of set up a printer because
send it over in a package.
By the way, my wife is always printing things randomly throughout the day. It scares the hell out of me, like just randomly. Anyway.
Well, I mean, at least your printer works.
Yeah. But so the next thing folks will notice as soon as they start up Rider is this kind of new notification tool window. And it looks really great. If I was to build this project too, you can kind of see notifications showing up in here as well. So there's a separation between suggestions and things that are happening in the timeline. And you can click things as well here. So if I wanted to run npm install because I added a package.json, I can do that. For me personally, this is a really nice quality of life improvement. I'm really happy that the team kind of adopted this. So I think Rider users will definitely love this as kind of an enhancement to the experience. Another thing too, if you're happen to be, say, on a release party webinar and maybe someone says something like, oh, I really can't see the text that's on your screen right now. Well, now you can hold on macOS, you can hold down Command and you can scroll. We have this nice little zoom in widget down here that you can see. And if you want to reset, you can just click this reset to previous and we go back to that font size. So folks who are doing demos, being in user groups, they're really going to love this feature. Also, I just showed it in one file, but if you have multiple file open, you can kind of scroll and it'll affect all the editors. But if you don't like that, you can go into preferences and I forget where it is. In general. So in general, in the preferences, under mouse control, you can either enable or disable this feature. You can say whether this feature only affects the active editor or if it affects all editors currently in the IDE. So I prefer all editors. I like uniformity, but you do you. If you like one way or the other, or you don't like it at all, you can kind of work with that feature. So let me close this out. All right.
I have one more thing. Yeah. I want to say, just because someone told me last week, Nick actually, because he said he loves it so much because, or at least he told me, or we noticed together. I don't recall exactly. If you pinch out on your MacBook, then you zoom in, of course. But when you do a quick pinch, how do you call it? Yeah. Then it will just reset. So you don't need to be accurate about to get to the default, but it's just quickly pinching in and you just switch back to default font size. That's really
you probably should ask your Mac whether it wants to be pinched first, but yes, you can do the pinch motion on the trackpad. I'm full of jokes today, folks. Just bear with me. We'll get through.
Are you really?
Matt, that hurts. That hurts. Anyways, so those are all the quality of life improvements in terms of, oh, wait, no, I forgot one thing. So I mentioned the main UI toolbar. Something a lot of folks were kind of wishing would come back and has come back is profiling tools are now available directly. So let me pick an actual .NET run configuration. So now you can do types of debugging where you attach the process, but you can also trigger profiling as well. So You can do sampling, tracing, timeline, and all this kind of stuff. So you no longer have to kind of search through the menus to find profiling actions. They're just all there in the main, in the run widget. So that's kind of some of the UI changes, but one of the biggest ones that I think people will love is when you hit Shift now, we've added a new text section. So you can search for things. Let me find bananas. You have to disable it, but oh my God, there's a file here with bananas. Isn't that crazy? Wow. I didn't know that was there. Thanks, search everywhere. How's my acting, by the way? Is it good? No, I don't know. But so yeah, you can search for text everywhere throughout your solution. But if you find that's too much, you can actually filter it down to scratches in console, recently viewed files, recently changed files, open files. I think you can also create your own scopes and you can search within those. So you can kind of really limit it. You can also limit by file type. So we have some common file types that you might be searching text in. Here's Markdown, text, C# files, but it could really be any kind of filter here as well. So folks will really love this. This file right now is in my project, but I also have, let me see here, just to show you. Yeah, this is in my Scratch. So this is a Scratch file. This isn't even part of my solution. And if you're a person that really loves using kind of the Scratch folder to create random files, this will help you find those text snippets that you're kind of been searching for and having difficulty finding. So hopefully folks will really love that feature as well. So cool. Yay. I don't hear an applause. Come on, guys. Let's do it. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Another thing that I want to show folks, because we've gotten a lot of feedback in terms of folks developing in Docker and using Docker Compose to kind of set up their entire solution. We've introduced something called Docker Fast Mode. And let me show you kind of how that works. So I have a Docker file here. Actually, let me open it for you. Oh my God, so big, so big. I'm old, but I'm not that old. All right. So we have a Docker file, and typically when you run a Docker file, if you're not familiar with it, we'll go get a bunch of base container images, and then we'll go through the steps of building your application. Typically, this build process, which I'll start here while I talk about it, typically we'll go get those base images, and we'll start running the build process within the Docker container itself. And as you can see, it's not super slow, but if you're developing an application and you want a faster feedback loop, this is kind of going to slow you down throughout the day. So you definitely don't want this as an experience. And you can see here, I have my Docker container running. If I run this again, since I have the images down, it's still not super fast, but it's a little faster since I don't have to go download this stuff. But a lot of folks actually want to debug their application inside of a Docker container. So what Docker Fast Mode does, and I'll go back to my application here, is when I click debug, what's actually going to happen is we're going to run the build process on your local machine. We're going to publish your application to a folder, and then that folder is going to be mounted as a volume. So now I'm debugging inside of Docker, and you can see that I'm paused. And if I go back to the services window, we can see the Docker container is paused because I'm debugging. And when we scroll down here, we can see the volumes that have been attached by Rider. So we have the Rider debugger, that's a volume. And then here at the bottom, you have your application, which is, in a publish folder as well. So I can stop this. And yeah, this should stop now. But now I can just hit debug again. And this should be a really fast experience. So it's basically like developing on your local machine. You could see that I'm back into debugging my application as well. So joys, I can hear the screams of joy around the world for this, right? I'm listening. Okay. So yeah. Oh, what was that? What was that noise?
It was the sound of crickets, I think.
Oh, I thought that's what joy sounds like.
My acting is not that good as yours.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's Docker fast mode. Try it out. If you don't want it, if there's something weird happening, you can kind of come up here into the run configuration and you can disable it. Either maybe you don't want it at all, or maybe you want like the build process, but you don't want to use the publish folder. So you can kind of play around with those settings. And yeah, that's Docker fast mode. So
Khalid, I have a question for you from the chat. Let's see. I'll also show it on screen. Does this work with Docker Compose as well? Can you debug a Docker container that depends on another?
Yeah, so this does work with Docker Compose. So what'll happen is it'll go through and build all of your projects, and then it'll mount them the same way. So whether it's one Docker file or a Docker Compose file, as long as you have the run configuration here and you're debugging, this will kind of work for that. So yeah, try it out.
I even have another one, but very specialized. What about debugging a container on a remote machine or an IoT device?
Yeah, so right now there's no real automatic debug. You can set it up. I think you can set it up through SSH and stuff, but it's still very manual, if I'm not mistaken. So it is something I know there's an issue in UTrack, and people are investigating it, but I'm not sure I have any new information. So I'd suggest that individual go to UTrack, find that issue, upvote it if they haven't already, and just contribute to the conversation there. So
all right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. All right. The thing everybody's been waiting for, which is F#. So let's get into F#. This is awesome. So one of the things that one of our F# users mentioned, Isaac Abraham, I'll mention him by name. He's working on an open source project called Farmer. And there was a particular issue where the project would take really long to start. It would almost stall out. And thanks to him, we were able to diagnose the issue and find what that problem is and fix it. So here I am. I'll start a new window. And I'm loading Farmer. And as you saw, I was just instantly in the project. The editor's open. So if you're an F# user and you're running into this issue should be resolved now. And you should be getting a great writer experience writing your F# project. So hopefully the F# community appreciates this work. I know our team worked really hard on this, and yeah, it's awesome. So another F# feature that I want to show folks. Let's go. Let's see here. Yeah, let's do this window. So one of the things a lot of teams are doing is maybe having cross-language teams. So you probably have a large contingency within your organization that is doing C# development. And then maybe you have another team that is doing F# development, and you want to share the code between both teams. A way to do that in .NET is to use the internals visible to assembly, or the internals visible to attribute on your F# assembly so that C# projects can see that code. So here you can see that I have the best console app ever, and I'm seeing that there are red lines here, meaning this is wrong. If I go over here into my F# module, let's see. Oh my God. I'll just use the mouse. And if I uncomment it, you can see immediately that the red lines go away and that I have access to the elements inside that module. So if I was to run that, just to prove there's no shenanigans, because we're all about shenanigans here, but not in this case, not about code. We're serious about it. You can see that my application runs. Although, is this right? Did I not right line this? But you can see it builds, and maybe I picked the wrong one. But anyways, it works. So if you're an F# user trying to support a C# team, you can use the internals visible to attribute. And now you can share F# code with C# applications. So yeah, other than that, I think that's really it. So back to you, folks.
Thanks a lot, Khalid. Next one on my list is Rachel, I think. Markdown?
Yep.
Rachel? Yeah? Okay. Ready for screen sharing?
I suppose.
Yeah, okay. It's there.
Let's see.
Go for it.
Some Markdown. We have what you showed before, which was Markdown, where you can actually go ahead and run the Markdown, but also there's been a few other improvements with Markdown as well, such as nice previews, some floating toolbars, and some other editing pieces that we can take a look at. And I was just about opening it there, and now it has to go and re-index a few things. So what you mentioned before with the bash, if I come in here and I do a couple of backticks and I just type in something like bash or JavaScript or whatever, as you know, Markdown's going to pick up that that's a language, and it should give me a nice little preview. But also, as mentioned before, I come in here and I can just type in a little, say a little bash script or something, and as soon as the IDE kind of pops back up, this should give me a little arrow to run this, as Matthias showed before. But it's not going to, because people are watching, and then it won't. And I had this issue yesterday, and then it went away, and it looks like it might be back. But in the meantime, other things that are new. Here, I do have some code, and as you see, those backticks did pick up that there's code, and there's other code here too that is labeled as JavaScript. At any time, I could come in here and just copy this with a little copy indicator, and then I have this code that I could paste in here somewhere else, right? And there I go, copy paste, and completely mark up my Markdown. Also, anytime I come in here and work with, say, code, or just grab a little bit of text, or here's links, whatever, there are some floating toolbars. So I could come in here and I could, remove the link. I could add the link back in. I could do all of my cool little editing, bold and italics and all that good stuff as well. Also, there's been some new settings as well. If I go to File Settings, then I can come in here and take a look for Markdown, and you'll see that there's a whole piece under the color scheme. There's some under languages where I could come in here and actually say that, yes, I want to see Markdown, and detect commands that can be run right from those files to eventually show that little arrow, as well as some of the other appearances and things that you can do in here. So there's a lot of new little options for Markdown, and it's just been spiffed up, and you can also run some code from it. Oh, there we go. It just took it a minute. So, and then I could just run in and it should just echo out a cute little what. So there we go.
That must be the MacBook performance everyone is talking about.
Yeah, if it were a MacBook.
So for me, it is instance. I was just trying simultaneously here. All good. So this one is Windows though. So by the same token, you'll notice there's a bit of a theme here, like cool little things you can run right out of the IDE. In one of the releases last year, we were also able to run some like Azure functions and some other things, depending on what it was, out of here as well. So there's always cool little bits and pieces you could run right out of the editor. So that's really nice. It's very handy. You don't have to try to spin up a little script editor or something. You could just fire off some commands. Quite nice. So
yeah, can I add something too? If you're an open source author, if you include a README with your NuGet packages, Rider will open that up. So now you have an opportunity to put code blocks to make it easier for folks to get started with your open source project.
Yeah.
And Rider will just pick that up, and they can just click through all those code blocks to kind of set up their solution. So a few packages that come to mind Entity Framework Core has that tool set where you create migrations or update the database. Those are great to put in there. So just a thought, putting it out there. So very awesome.
Yeah, so that's basically it. So we just spiffed up Markdown. You could run things from it now. A few toolbars, some extra smoothness in your editing, and that's about it. I think we can move on to whoever is next, which I think is Matt.
I actually have another question for that. Does anyone know if this also works with PowerShell? So right here we have Bash, but PowerShell.
It does.
Yeah. Well, that's nice.
Yeah. So the Bash code block is a keyword, but you can basically run anything in there. So if Rachel was to type PWSH and then whatever the PowerShell command is to write things out, it'll just run. So
yeah, I don't know what the commands are for PowerShell. I have to go look them up. But yeah, it does. It runs them.
Yeah. I will also note though, like it runs inside of your terminal. So whatever your terminal is set at, those commands have to kind of match. So
okay, yeah,
like
that makes sense.
If your default terminal is PowerShell and you have PowerShell commands, it'll work. But for macOS users, if we're Z Shell or something like that, you might have to put like a prefacing PWSH. So just keep that in mind when you're writing those code blocks.
What do you actually put there for? I mean, there's Bash, PowerShell. What do you put there for? Just Windows Terminal or console, basically CMD?
Yeah, CMD.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, Rachel said it. Matt, you're next.
Let's do it.
Okay, where's this?
I want to hear these jokes.
Hey, I don't do jokes. I'm just going to hit you with a lot of facts, a lot of really good, useful information. Because that was a great segue as well, because I've got some juicy stuff to show. This is good. So we've done a lot of smaller quality of life things, and just as I unmute, an ice cream van goes past. So I hope you heard all that. That was nice.
We can wait. Just...
yeah, I'll be back in a minute then. What was I saying? So yeah, so it's not just a whole load of quality of life kind of fixes and updates and UI tweaks and changes to workflow. We've got a couple of other big features in as well. One of which is remote development. This is a feature that we brought to the other JetBrains IDEs in the last release, 2021.3. This release now we've brought it to Rider, and the idea of this is that you can develop your code remotely. You can have your code living on a remote machine. You can have your IDE Rider also living on that remote machine, and it does all of the processing on the remote machine. So you don't have to do anything. You can have a really low-powered laptop. You can go to somebody else's machine. You can do all these kinds of things, and you can make use of cloud computing, of big servers, all that to give you a whole lot of fun stuff. And you connect then via a local client. So we download a small, lightweight, trimmed down version of IntelliJ essentially to act as a local client and to give you a really good full fidelity experience, but everything's happening remotely. And this works through a little app we've got called Gateway. And Gateway sort of manages everything. You can see it here on the screen now. And you've got several options of connecting. Firstly is nice and simple, is just via SSH. Give us an SSH connection to a remote machine. We'll install the IDE for you, start it up, manage the connection, and that's it. That's all we need to do. We've also got things like JetBrains Space, which Maarten will show shortly. And for some IDEs right now, we've got support from Gitpod as well. So Gitpod, we've got a relationship going there where they can host remote development environments for you and run everything in the cloud through that. They don't support Rider right now. They're only supporting a handful of the IDEs. That'll roll out over time. So I'm going to go with SSH. And what we can do here is we can set up an SSH connection. I've got one there to an AWS instance with a simple SSH key. And what I can do is I can select the ID that I want to install. We can see now that Rider is in the list. If I select that, I can then use the SSH to see where it is I want to go to find my solution file. And I can, wherever it is, select it there. If I don't have that there, I can already start up a terminal and I can do git clone, whatever. And download and get my code onto my machine, and then I can click download and start the IDE. I've already got this running somewhere, so let me just back out of that and go to my recents and connect. And it will now connect to the back end. The back end should be already running in this case. It'll launch the client for me. That'll manage the connection, start talking, and there we go. We've got a connection now to Rider running remotely on an AWS instance somewhere, and it's loading it up. And as you can see, it looks very much like a normal instance of Rider. We've got a terminal down the bottom there. We've got code, which we can scroll through. This is a local editor. So it's nice and responsive and works well. We've got a project view on the side there. We can look at the structure of the code as well. If I select the right file, wherever it is, we can view bookmarks and save things there as well. We've got unit test support, databases, and a whole load of things there. So I can do normal sort of navigation around. So if I look for my endpoints, for example, I get normal sorts of features there. Let's go to, I don't want the test, what's it called? Grocery list item endpoints. And we can navigate around. Let's say if we got tag here, if I do find usages, then we get to see the normal sets of features. And all of this is running remotely. I don't have any of this code on my local machine. It's all remote and accessing remotely. And we can run this as well. So if I just click the run, it'll build. And again, it builds out remotely. It starts the process up. That's going to put some stuff into the database, and it's going to launch an API for me. This is just a simple minimal API. It doesn't have a user interface, but it's got a Swagger definition, and so I can connect to that, and then I can start doing interesting stuff and try it out and access the things and work with it like that. Let's just stop that. And so basically, yeah, you've got Rider running remotely, and this is great. It works best, obviously, for web applications because you can't necessarily remote the interface. Other useful things to know right now is that we need a Linux backend, so you actually have to run Rider remotely on Linux for now. We are going to support Windows backend and a Mac backend, but we're just not there yet. And what else is licensing? It's just part of your existing license, so it's the client that really licenses when it connects to the item itself. And one last thing, which is really nice to show you as well, is one of the difference when we're running the client is that you've got this little widget in the top left corner. This is sort of a control center widget, and that gives you an indication of what the performance is like on your remote machine. You can see the ping, you can see the load average, what memory is in usage, disks, disk space, the output from the for log type things, and you've also then got some settings there if you want to bump up memory usage and so on. And I think that's it really for a really quick show. I could talk a whole lot more about some of the things we've got, but that's kind of a very quick view of what we've got. But I've just connected via SSH. So I've just given it a remote machine I've created by SSH. I've let Gateway download and install Rider for me. I've connected to my application, which I've done through Git. And basically, I've had to do all this orchestration myself. As I say, we've got Gitpod, which have got a relationship there, which will work with some IDEs, but we've also got support for Rider and development environments in space. And I think Maarten is going to talk about that. So can we hand over to Maarten?
That's a really nice introduction and segue there. Thanks, Matt.
I'm a professional, I told you.
It's fantastic. I was actually going to say this, that in your instance, you still had to boot up a virtual machine. It's really hard to share it with other people on the team because it's just one machine, right? So there's no way to template the machine and make it available to others. And that is indeed where Space comes in handy. So Space is JetBrains' all-in-one tool for project teams. So you get issue tracking, you get chat, you get CI/CD, you get automation where you can run APIs. For example, when someone does something in an issue, you can automate something that something else happens. For example, a merge request gets closed and all that. And of course, you get Git hosting in there as well. So this is a project that I have nicely called Remote Development. And in it, I have several repositories that are Git repositories. So I have one that is NPM-based, one that is Python-based, and so on. And all of these can be opened in IDE in Space. And the one that we're interested in, of course, is opening in IDE with Rider. So in any Git repository you have in Space, you essentially get this Open in IDE button. And this one will let you set up a new development environment. So I already have a couple of them running, and I'll switch into those in a little bit. But the idea is simple. You pick the branch you want to work on. If you want to work on a merge request, you can do that as well. You specify the size of the virtual machine you want to work with, 4 CPU, 8 CPUs, 16 CPUs. You select the ID, you select the project root. So even if you have multiple solutions in one Git repository, you can just point space to which one you want to open. And then you can go ahead and create and get everything opened. I'm not going to create a new one. I'm just going to open an existing one. And what you will see is that this one, for example, if I connect to it, my JetBrains gateway will open just like what Matt was showing you. But instead of manually setting up the connection, what this will do is simply connect to space, connect to the virtual machine that is running in space, and give me access to the Rider that is running there. So you may have noticed that I'm running on Windows here. If I would open the terminal in this Rider IDE, this is actually a Linux terminal that is running in JetBrains space. So I can echo there, I can top there, whatever you want to do. This is really a Linux machine that is running in the space clouds. Also, like with Gateway, if you self-host everything, it looks and feels like Rider. So this gives you the solution model. You can run things, you can debug things, and even if you configure under the services, for example, you add a service and say you want to connect to Docker running on that virtual machine in space, you can work with that as well. Look what is going on there. If, for example, for your development, you need to run a MySQL container, let's go with that. You can pull in the image and just run it remotely. So all of your development happens in that virtual machine that is running in space. Now, what is really interesting is that you can also customize the environment in which this remote IDE is going to be running. So what I did is in my project, I created a .space folder. In that folder, there's a dev file.yaml, and this one gives some templates for when people want to open this project in space as well. So if a team member goes into space, wants to open this, by default, it will select a large instance. It will configure Rider as the IDE, and it will also point to this specific solution file that I have in this Git repository there. Also, I told Rider, or I told Space, and Rider is running in there, that I want to base my virtual machine on a Docker file that I also have in this Space folder. So instead of using the default that Space gives you, which has .NET 6 installed, you can actually customize the entire environment, install the Linux-based tools that you may want to have in that environment and want to start working with. So this is what that Docker file looks like. I am essentially telling Space to pull in the .NET 6.0
Martin,
SDK container.
Can you zoom in a bit? I think it's not
How's
too
this?
easy to read. A bit more.
All right, let's go for it.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, this is really the Microsoft SDK container that I'm pulling in, but I am customizing it. I'm installing some utilities that are not in the default container. I'm also making sure that I can work with Docker in that container. And also because this project that I have, the solution that I have is multi-targeting 3.1 and 6.0, I'm also installing or making sure that both SDKs are installed and updated. Now, the nice thing about this is that every team member that I have will be opening this Rider instance for this specific project using this exact same Docker file that is there. So all of the tools are shared across the team. If you create a new feature branch and you need additional tooling installed, you can do that in that branch, and people working on that branch will use the Docker file that is in that specific branch. So that's really nice. Maybe one last thing here is that next to customizing this dev file with the templates of what VM size you want to work with and what the project root should be, and next to customizing the operating system, there's also one additional thing that you can do, and it is warming up the environments. So essentially what you can do is in your projects, create a .space.kts file, and this is Kotlin based, but there's plenty examples that you can find. And what I'm doing in here is making sure that I'm also warming up this Rider instance. So I have a job defined there that says, okay, clone all of the references that I have in my Git repository. Every night and on every push to the main branch, run this specific job. And I want you, Space, to warm up with Rider based on that dev file that I created and this devenv warmup.sh file that I have. Why is this important, or why is this useful to do? Well, imagine you are really heavily customizing that Docker file in that operating system, and you're installing tons of different things. And it would take 10 minutes to create that Docker file and make sure that it runs. You probably want to speed that up. And by creating such a warm-up file, what we will do is pre-compile or pre-generate that Docker container for you, so that the next time someone in the team opens this development environment, they will get it based on that Docker file that is there. Also, during warm-up, this warm-up script will run. And it can contain anything really. But what I did here is I do a .NET restore and a .NET build when that warm-up happens, because the result of that is also included in the Docker image that is going to be used for your development environment, which means if there's lots of package restores that have to run, you can do it every single night during that warm-up, instead of having every developer having to manually run everything, wait for things to restore and all that. The key here is that you can get started really quickly using that development environment in Space. Now, I know one of the questions that a lot of people have is, do I have to use Space and go full in? Can I just use my GitHub repository? Well, yes, in the repositories in Space, what you can do, let's go to repositories, is when you create a new repository, you can of course host it in Space directly, but what you can also do is mirror from an external repository. Git-based could be Azure DevOps, for example, or could be GitHub. And what Space will do is keep both repositories in sync. So any change that you make in a development environment in Space will also flow through to GitHub in that case. So definitely make sure to check it out. There's some free credits included as well. And the URL is very simple, jetbrains.space. Do we have any questions on that?
I'm not too sure. I didn't follow the chat, to be honest. Anyone knows? I don't see anything.
Yeah, nothing really specific about Space. So yeah, I'm just looking at this whole thing though. I'm thinking like all the excuses developers use, like I'm building my environment, it's compiling. It's like JetBrains just taking them all away. So like, what new excuses can we come up with?
Well, I mean, the new excuse is that you can be working on customizing your dev environments. That's the new thing.
Yeah, but that's like 2 minutes worth of work.
We'll come up with an excuses generator for Rider 2022.2.
Okay, cool. I'm going to hold you to that.
Yeah, I think it's good. One thing I should have added when I was talking about being able to run and debug your application locally is that Rider will automatically port forward. Will create the port forwarding for you. So you just need to run and Rider will forward the ports and you just connect and it just works, which is really nice. So you don't need to worry about that. And that works the same with debugging as well. Debugging, everything's running remotely and it stays remotely, but you can access it through the web browser from your local machine, and also the debugger looks like it's running locally, but it's actually doing all of its work on the remote machine. But again, it's pretty seamless. It's the same sort of experience you already know from Rider, which is cool.
So Linda has a question. Does Space have a separate license from JetBrains?
Yeah. So does Space have a separate license from JetBrains? Space is a software as a service that has all of these project management solutions and so on that are there. If you want to use your development environment in there, you can reuse your existing Rider license. The only thing that you will have to pay additionally for that is of course the CPU time and memory that you are consuming in Space when you exhausted the free credits.
Okay. Maarten, you asked for questions, you get questions. Another
That's
question.
Good.
Any support for running Xamarin or Maui apps remotely?
Is there any support for running Xamarin and Maui? I think you can probably run them. The only difficulty is going to be that you will not be able to see what is happening. So what we are doing is really piping everything that is happening in the IDE over the wire so that we can display it in this thin client. And what you will not get is anything that is like remote desktop or VNC or whatever, where you could, for example, run an emulator in this remote environment.
But that kind of thing is actually on the roadmap. So we are looking at what we can do to make it so that we can show applications. It's going to be harder for desktop applications, but some things such as mobile emulators they're going to be a bit more useful. We want a similar sort of thing for Android Studio, because of course the remote desktop feature is across all of the IDEs, not just Rider.
All right, cool.
And while we're at it, it's probably worth pointing out that we're not doing, this isn't remote desktops. What we see here, we're not just sending graphics over the wire to do all that. We're actually got a really cool sort of set of technology under the covers, where there's a whole bunch of stuff running locally, such as the actual editor itself, but then it's just passing very lightweight information to the back end. So all the dialogues, for example, we're not displaying the dialogue on the back end and then just getting the graphics at the front end. We're getting a lightweight description view model being sent across the wire. Yeah. It's cool stuff.
Exactly. Actually, you can see in the status bar here, you can see the download and upload of whatever is going on. So if you are typing and things are updating, you will see that it's not consuming a lot of bandwidth. It's essentially just sending the keystrokes and getting updates from the server on what should be displayed. But none of that is, like you say, proxied or remote desktops into my local machine here.
Yeah, I think that's what I was going to add too. It's like you really feel it when you're typing, because there's just it's like a native app because it's all happening locally. So there's just no latency when you're typing. Like you're not going to get ghost typing if that's what you're worried about. Yeah.
All right, that was that part. I think Matt, you're next. The part that all the Twitchers were waiting for, probably.
What are you saying? What?
The part all the Twitchers were waiting for. Yeah,
could be game development. Yeah. So, okay. We've kind of saved the. Are we good?
Yes.
Awesome. Go for it. So we've kind of saved the biggest change till about halfway through all of this. Because while again we said it was going to be a lot of quality fixes, and a lot of these things are, one of the really big features we did is we added all of C++, which is a fairly significant change. We've got support for Unreal Engine and C++ now in Rider, and I think it's probably important to sort of answer the sort of the elephant in the room question here is, why have we got C++ in a .NET IDE? There's a couple of really good reasons, to be honest. There's a couple of technical reasons. So firstly, we want to support Unreal Engine, and a lot of that is kind of based on Visual Studio project files, .vcx proj and the MS Build project system and everything. And C-Line, which is our standalone C++ IDE, we would have to teach it how to do MS Build, and that's a significant challenge. And Rider already does that, so that's useful. The other thing is that Rider is built on top of ReSharper, which is our plugin to Visual Studio, and ReSharper already has support for C++. So the ReSharper C++ product already understands the Visual C++ extensions. It already understands Unreal Engine. It's got great support for Unreal Engine as it is. We spent years building it, so sort of tuning its performance to work with the particular characteristics of the Unreal Engine source code and everything. And basically, we've got a lot of stuff going on inside Rider and ReSharper that we would have to rewrite in C-Line to do that. Whereas what we can actually do is just bring things into bring the ReSharper type stuff into Rider, and we can make that work. There's other reasons as well, such as the build system in Unreal also uses C# as well. So here, for example, we have various Unreal items, Unreal project files here, build files, which we can now understand in Rider, because of course Rider knows C#. We would have to teach C-Line C# in order to support this, which is not something that we're likely to do. But here, of course, you can see that we've already got sort of syntax highlighting and code completion for C# stuff in an Unreal project, which is pretty cool. And there are, of course, also other good reasons as well, in that Rider itself has got a great reputation as having fantastic support for Unity. We've got plugins for Monogame and Godot, and so bringing Unreal into that, it kind of makes Rider into a great one-stop game dev IDE. We already know that people sort of move between engines, and so it's perfectly now valid to be able to use one IDE to be able to do all those things. So we're kind of positioning the two IDEs differently. C-Line is for sort of native CMake based embedded applications like that, sort of for embedded devices and native devices applications. And Rider is really for Visual C++ based products, game development, Unreal Engine, and of course all the other game engines as well. And so we brought all of C++ into Rider. We've had this running as a preview for the last, I think it's been 2 years, working very hard on getting it to work really nicely, working with the engines and everything. It supports Unreal Engine 4, Unreal Engine 5, and you can do a whole load of things there. We've got the usual sort of navigation that you'd expect. We can just start typing and we'll find it. So let's go to shooter game delegates, and you can just very quickly navigate around. We can do find usages, and that'll hopefully search for something. There it is, and it'll jump me straight to an item. And we've got a lot of really cool features going on there that you can use. One thing you'll notice here as well is that I'm actually running this on Mac. So we're not just based on Windows now. So while we do use the Visual C++ MS Build based project model, that's not available cross-platform. So we also support using Unreal Engine's U project model. So we can open the U project files here. What's happening there? Oh, I think that's just started. So we can open the U project files. We've got our usual JSON-based files here, which are describing the game project here, and we can load that directly. So I don't have any C# files here. I've got one moment. So I don't have any CS proj files here. I don't have any VCX proj here. There's no MS Build going on here at all. We've loaded the U project files and we're working directly with that. There are benefits to this as well, because when you generate the Visual C++ project files with Visual Studio and Unreal, then there are it generates for a certain configuration. With the U project files, we get all the information, and we can actually provide slightly more accurate code completion here as well for C++ and Unreal stuff. So that's kind of a bit of a description of what it is. Let me have a look at some things. We've got the usual sort of features you expect with navigation. We've got fun things with C++. So for example, if I'm using assets module there,
you may have muted yourself, Matt.
Yeah, Matt, you're muted.
Oh, his mic is disconnected. I don't think he can hear us. Oh,
I don't think so. No.
Oh.
Our streams are cursed.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Matt Ellis. I am demoing Unreal. Well, somebody has to dub him. Come on.
You can mime whatever Matt is explaining.
So let's click here and we'll select that stuff and then jump to that line and back to the first line and red squigglies, Alt Enter. You're going very fast.
He can't see us.
This is awesome. We did this for a while.
Does anybody have his wife's phone number? Maybe we can text her. And she can,
I'm going to try and reach him on a different channel.
I bet you his AirPods ran out of battery. So he doesn't.
He knows.
Oh
dear. Can someone call him?
All right.
I'm gonna try.
That's a good part when you turn everything off to not be disturbed, but then this happens.
Oh man.
I've reached voicemail.
Matt is a machine. If Maarten is a robot, have you simulated Matt? Is that what's happened? Is that why he's still going? He is. You know what? I can tell though. He's definitely in the zone. He's doing a great job. So.
Oh no.
Oh man. He literally can't see us, folks. He can't. He's in the zone.
Should we maybe temporarily jump into the other improvements like VCS support and running static methods and so on, while in the background we try and reach him?
Once we switch screens, he might notice. That might knock him out of the zone.
I mean, I can, yeah, but I feel so bad talking over.
Well, normally it would be rude. This is a little different.
Here, let's all put our hands next to our cameras and see if he notices. Oh, he has noticed, folks.
I think he has noticed, yeah.
Matt, say something.
Hello.
Yeah.
Is this working?
No, can you repeat that?
So where are we? What's happening?
You were muted for the last.
Is my microphone working now or what?
Yeah, we can.
Now it is, yeah.
You're on mute for like the last 5 minutes.
I can't hear anything or do anything.
We saw you doing stuff. We were trying to dub over and give you a voice.
Is somebody else there talking and trying to explain what's going on?
He can't hear us either.
Okay, go for it. Right, we can hear me. Right, now the big question is, how far back do I need to go?
Good.
Have I just been talking for 20 minutes and you guys have missed everything?
Good Cheeseburger says
right,
it was
5 minutes. I'm going to go back
like
5 minutes.
Last
2 minutes. Right. Well, what was I saying? Let's
It's
all right. Well, let's just talk about this Unreal header tool here then. So this this file I'm showing right now then, it's just a demo file. It's we've got an Unreal class here. It's marked with the uClass macro, and we can see that we've got a field being used here with a property on there saying that we've got a getter method called getHealth, and we've got an error immediately shown there. And this is because we are running the Unreal header tool for you. We find the Unreal header tool, and instead of it being run as part of a build, we will actually run as you type, and we can show you errors there to try and reduce that sort of feedback cycle. So instead of having to wait until you've got an error, wait until there's a build to see there's an error, we'll bring those up front and center and show it for you. We've got other features with the reflection macros as well. So for example, if I uncomment these, we can just do comments, sort of quick docs on the transient meta value there. We can see that it's all good. We get to see what's going on. And again, we'll see the items there. We also get code completion in there as well. So we can select things like localized, and it'll all be shown. And we can see we've got a value there. And again, Unreal header tool has been run and it doesn't particularly like that one. So let's get rid of that and comment that back up. So we've got a lot of support for reflection macros, for running the header tool, and for doing a whole lot of stuff. Some of the really cool things is when we get to the blueprint support. So let me just jump to shooter pickup. And one thing we can see straight away is we've got these little code vision links here, and we can see that shooter pickup is being used in 3 blueprint classes. Now, when you're working with Unreal here, you can actually write some C++ code and then use that in the editor to create classes to work with in a more visual manner, so that your artists and level designers can use your code directly. And we can see where those are being used, and hopefully, because Unreal is running in the background, it'll open the editor. So there we go. So there's the editor for Ammo Launcher, which it just opened. Let me just jump back to Rider. And if I go back to this one, which is going to be finding, where are you? Oh, okay, we'll go for 3. We'll have Pickup Health. If I click that and jump back, we should now see the editor for Pickup Health, but it's not doing it. Okay, other things we've got in here there with support for blueprints, though, as well as we can see what values are being set to something as well. So we've got a property here, such as for this particle system, and we can see that it's being assigned in your code there. So it's a really useful way of bringing together the data which is being stored in Unreal Editor and showing it in your code there as well. We've got support for unit testing as well. So if you jump into the unit test window, we get to find all of the tests that you've got, and you can run those. If you go to the file itself, we'll highlight those in the file. If I just scroll down a bit, close that, we should have the little tool icons. There it is, gutter icons there. Click that, it'll run the tests. We've got support for shaders. We've got support for debugging as well, so I can attach the debugger and obviously pause. We've got all the usual sort of features you've got in there: conditional breakpoints, dependent breakpoints, and we also support, the sort of displaying your items correctly as you'd expect. Right, so I'm going to leave it at that for Unreal. I think there's loads more I can show and talk about, but I'm aware, obviously, that not everybody's going to be doing C++. Do we have any questions as it stands, apart from where on earth did your microphone go and why didn't you notice?
That demo was unreal, Matt. It was
and
amazing.
Also, why can't I hear anything? Right, can you do any kind of question through the medium of...
Oh, Matt can't hear us. Oh, geez. Okay, interpretive dance.
All right, well, I can't hear anything, so I'm going to assume that everything's fine. So somebody give me a thumbs up if everything's fine. Look at that. There's almost a full suite. Right, so I'm going to move on. And because we're talking game development, let's just do a quick couple of minutes on Unity. We've got, again, it's a fairly small feature quality release for Unity. Number of small features, quite a few fixes, a couple of cool performance fixes, which I'll talk about in a sec. But one of the big features really is very useful for working with assembly definition files. So if you are trying to use a class which is defined in another assembly, Rider very helpfully tells you that you can reference another project, what I call my code here, and import a type. When you do that, Rider will update the CS proj file. But then Unity will come along and regenerate those project files, and it will then lose the definition there. What we can do now is, if you've got this set as a set up in an assembly definition file, is we will automatically update that for you when the CS proj file changes. So if I do my Alt-Enter there, you can see that now I've automatically got a new reference here for my code. Nice and simple, but it just means that your assembly definition is fine. When Unity comes to refresh the project files, it will automatically include that reference to my code, and everything will be good. So that's nice. Similar kind of thing, we've added support for add and ref files. So if you've got an assembly reference, we can now support reference files. They're nice and simple. Again, if it's a GUID, we'll show you nice things like the name of what it actually is. We can do code completion of what you've got there. And I can also do control click and navigate to the actual definition. If I do find usages on that, then it'll show me my assembly definitions, but it'll also show me where it's being used in my assembly reference. And it'll put it there. So again, it kind of closes the circle there for assembly definitions and assembly references as well, which is nice. On top of that, then there's not much else to demonstrate, but we've had a couple of nice fixes. So performance-wise, we've improved the loading speed of large projects, especially when those large projects are on very slow hardware. So we've reduce the amount of work we're doing on disk, and that's can have a bit of an impact on large projects. And secondly, there's been a small performance improvement when you're typing and you're showing the Unity Explorer as well, which is nice. There have also been improvements to how we work with source generators as well, and this is a big deal for Unity developers who are using the new DOTS packages. So the new data-oriented tech stack makes a whole lot of use of source generators, and under the covers, under the hood, we actually do work a lot better with source generators, and we've worked with Unity to make sure that they work nicely and will update your code as appropriate. But then the other thing that we need to show you about Unity, though, is actually a whole new project, a whole new product. And this is a product that we call RiderFlow. And this isn't actually a product, a feature for Rider. It's a feature for Unity itself. It's a plugin into the Unity editor. And it's a free plugin. You can just download it. You can install it. You can install it into your assets folder. You can install it as a UPM package as well. So it's just, it doesn't affect your file system. And it adds a few really nice features to Unity, to the editor itself. We've kind of wanted to bring some of the productivity tools that we've got in Rider into the editor itself. So we can do things like show groups inside the hierarchy here. So these colorful groups here are being drawn by RiderFlow itself. We can group things and work with that. We can add bookmarks to items as well. So I can star and unstar my sheep. So I can navigate around. I can add notes as well. So I can do, say, a to-do item there. And if I go to the RiderFlow menu here and click notes, then it'll show me the items down here, and we can see what items being there. Useful really for showing to-dos or just leaving general notes and for catching up with things. These are saved to the project as well, so you can actually share these with your team, or if you want to, of course, you can exclude those and have them just for yourself. We've got a nice toolbar here, so if we bookmark items, we can hit our bookmark, and we can quickly jump to our sheep and navigate around. All of these are accessed by keyboard shortcuts, so it's very quick to sort of jump around your scene, so you can just very save things and work on how you're working with things. And we also got camera shortcuts as well, so I can jump to different views of my scene, which is great if you're trying to position models correctly and you want to sort of move around and keep on swapping and everything. It's really useful to be able to jump between things. We've also got a little search toolbar here for searching for things like fireplace, and then I can just drag that off and add that to my scene nice and easily. Interestingly, well, let's just try that again. Okay, thanks Unity. That's not terribly useful. Let's try adding some. Let's add some logs. Okay, well, there's something been added, but Unity's added invisible things for me instead, which is fun. The other thing we've got in here is a main search box here, so I can search for my sheep, and that will find me things like files and items and in the hierarchy. So if I just click on files there, I can go and find my sheep prefab, and it's highlighted down here. If I right click on that now, I can do things like find usages, and it will give me a list of where it's being used, and I can then sort of click on that to navigate around. Let's just close this toolbar around. But the other thing I can do, which is really cool, is I can do show usages in scene, and it actually grays everything out, and it just shows where the items are, which I can then sort of step through and navigate between. So that's really cool and a really nice way of working. Final thing to show with this is if I just go and find a file. Let's go and grab that. If I right click on this, I can do open code editor, and we get an integrated code editor here for doing very simple lightweight changes here. It's not a replacement for an IDE, but it's useful if you just want to make a very quick change. You know, if I wanted to actually, but I wanted a default of that. So there we go. I can do that, and I can save it, and we're done. And as I say, this is a free tool here. You can go to JetBrains.com, RiderFlow, and you'll be able to download it and add it to your file, add it to your project, add it into as a UPM package, and so on. And so I think that's me done. We have questions. All right. Again, bearing in mind I can't hear you. Can you do it through the medium of dance? So yes, I know it's in the private chat. I was hoping Khalid was going to do the dancing, and I could say, oh, wow, there's a question about Unreal. So any idea about Unreal CLR support? So that was a really good dance, Khalid. That was good. The Unreal CLR is support for using C# in the Unreal editor, rather than having to do everything through C++. Right now, we don't have any plans to support it, but we are kind of keeping an eye on it and to see what the project does and how it develops, and whether it will be something that we do want to support in the future. So basically, not yet, but maybe. Okay. Right, I'm going to go and try and sort out my headphones.
I think no more questions. No, or did I miss anything?
You. Lovely dancing again, Khalid.
Can someone help me from the others? I think there are no other questions.
Right? No other questions.
No.
Okay, good.
Then
Then
I am sad I'm not getting any compliments for my dancing though in chat. So there's that. Please compliment me, people. That's all I got. I'm just joking.
so
Go ahead.
lady.
Are you really?
No. Go ahead, Matthias. Go ahead.
All right. I have some more news to share for version control integration. And the first thing I want to start with is that's really great news for me, at least, let's say, but I hope for a lot of others. So like this is a very small project, okay, but by times you really want to find out why a certain line of code is there like it is, right? And before this release, all that you got by just clicking on that particular sorry, I should have said that. What you do then is kind of do annotate, what we call it, or git blame. So in this case, I'm using VCS operations. Very nice shortcut, also Control V on macOS. Otherwise, I think it's called Alt Q. But yeah, then we can bring up the annotate part, which essentially does a git blame in the background. And then what happened before, if we click that, was just that you basically see the whole commit change list. So all the changes that belong to this particular commit that I see, which changed this particular line. But now with the latest release, what you get is basically, so even if this is closed, you basically go to the git log. The proper commit will be selected. You can inspect basically everything what is relevant to this commit, and moreover, you can also use shortcuts to navigate around, because this is something that I did quite often, just to go here and say annotate previous revision, annotate previous revision, just to see where's the actual change, or kind of backtrack what happened in this particular case. So this is one thing. Another thing, and I'm kind of happy that it works right now, is if you have GPG configured, so to kind of verify your commits. I did that in my IDE right here. It doesn't take actually very long. So if let me see, I have the document open right here. It doesn't take very long. So if you just search for setting up GPG in IntelliJ, then you will find this, and it's available for all the different operating systems. And you do that, then you can also actually see in the log view which commits can actually be verified and which commits might be from someone else. Because I still remember when I learned Git, it was kind of, at first it was surprising, let's say, that you can create commits for someone else, and everyone just thinks, okay, it was this person. But no, yeah. So for this, to make sure you really need this, in the latest version, what we also did is bringing this to the commit details window, or panel, so kind of here. So there you see it too now, and that's as far as this goes. There's another feature, but unfortunately, yeah, I was also kind of didn't make enough sacrifices for the demo gods, apparently. If you host your project on Space, and I should ask Maarten, Space experimental instances are still available, right? So even as
there's a free account that you can use. Just go to JetBrains.space and go for it.
Yeah. So one thing, talking about Space, one thing that is looks really nice, and I hope maybe it also comes for other hosting services as well, is that for a certain commit, you can see if this particular commit runs successfully, for now just on Space. So we can see, okay, this commit didn't run well, whereas this also didn't run well. This was okay. Usually you should also see that inside this git log here, and the best I can is just showing you the image right here, which is from our what's new page, because I have no idea, something something didn't go well in my setup here. But usually you see it here. Also immediately, if you commit something, you will see a little icon that shows, okay, CI/CD is still running, and then you can just, after a while, can see whether this succeeded or not. Okay, this is interesting. So now I just moved and the icon suddenly appeared.
The demo gods are happy.
This is very interesting. So one thing more I learned for the next time when I kind of try to troubleshoot that. But yeah, actually, let's see. Now that I talked about it, I can actually fix this stuff. Fix publicity, it was called, right? So let's do a push. And you can see at least this pops up right here. And also after a while, this will be scheduled. Now it's running. And then after a while, it will go back to the green state, hopefully. Dear demo gods. Okay, another thing is I want to show, no, that's not the one. I hope it's this one. Yeah, exactly. But I still need to go here once more. So inside Rider, we can not just create pull requests, but also work on them, including, and that this is something new, to accept suggested changes. So if you haven't seen this before, like I will make a quick example here. I have a suggested change already, but once you click on this little plus icon, you can use this to add a suggestion and then basically just rewrite the code. And inside IDE, we will see this, but of course, we also see it in GitHub right here. But let's switch back over here, look for our pull requests. And you see I have this open already. And let's click this again just to bring this up. And what we get now with the latest release is that from right here, we can just say apply locally. Yeah. So once this is done, it will be marked as resolved in the GitHub UI. We still need to commit locally, of course. But this makes it a lot easier, you know, to just go through, not leaving your IDE basically. And I think this is supposed to be, yeah, this is a good class. Okay, this is a good class. And yeah, this brings us a step further to make this experience really integrated, the whole working with pull requests part. Okay, and the last thing, I think at least, yeah, the last thing is something also related to version control, of course. And I should search for, what was it? Div tools. Now with the latest version, you can add custom div tools, and not only, you know, one particular one, but you can also choose to make this for a particular file type. So for instance, also for images, or what I saw also in our release notes for SQL. Actually, I have never seen this before. I would really love to see this div tool that can handle SQL. But yeah, I'm not a database person. But one thing I want to show you, and I think this is a good showcase, like beyond compare. Meanwhile, no longer have it installed. But for instance, to compare images, because as far as I know, we don't have something like this. Beyond compare could be used, for instance, for image comparison, just to see, okay, this is really the place where something happened, or even if you just you know, change the color theme a little bit, you can still see which pixels actually changed through that change. So this might be a good idea for folks that don't just work on, you know, simple code files, C# or whatever, or text files. So yeah, just keep this in mind. There's one thing off script that I want to show you, because I just discovered this recently. And I'm pretty sure we never showed that in our release stream. So one thing related to unit testing, and currently it's only available for those parameterized NUnit tests. But it will probably, if we have luck, if we press our thumbs, it will also write for XUnit. So in these cases, when you have a parameterized test, after a while, particularly if you have lots of those, it gets quite difficult to understand where a certain parameter belongs to for this particular test. Now, what we added, I don't exactly know on which release, is an inlay hint. You just have to enable that also, and that will basically give you the name for that particular parameter just in this attribute right here. And for those that are not quite familiar with that, so this doesn't really match the constructor of the actual test case attribute. Same for XUnit. XUnit also uses params of object array. So this can be quite helpful, just to understand, still always keeping knowing about the context, what parameter you're supplying, and etc. Okay, I think that's it from my side. Let me quickly orientate myself. Any questions? No questions?
I think there was one question related to plastic SEM. Do all of these VCS features work for that as well?
Which particular? I mean, as long as the GitHub pull request, of course, only GitHub. I mean, Maarten will probably know if it works in space, but that is a GitHub feature. The annotate thing should work everywhere. Yeah, I see no reason why not. Same with.
Can I just jump in a sec? For one thing, I can hear you, which is nice. But the plastic, I believe, has a separate plugin. It's not available out of the box, but you can download a plugin for it, and that should then therefore give a whole lot of the features, such as the log window and so on.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thanks, Matt. Other questions? No, I don't think so.
Nothing so far, no.
Then last part is Rachel again. Rachel, ready?
Yep, we're good.
Screen is on.
Yeah, ending things with a couple of small, simple things. The first is kind of a continuation from before, just running things out of your editor. If you have static methods, now you could run or debug, right? So I just click the little arrow. So just look for arrows in your gutter, right? And there's always good stuff where there's an arrow. So in this case, yep, it displayed the message in the terminal window here or in the run window here, and we're good. So nice, fun little feature, an easy thing, just to throw out a few little extra snippets of code for you to run. And a little fix that we had was with renaming, right? Because we know naming is hard, renaming is harder, right? It seems to be how it goes. You could rename solutions just by doing a right click, edit, and rename. And then I could just rename it to whatever I want. The thing with the solution, though, they're just basically virtual containers for other containers, which are the projects. The real magic happens when you rename a project. Not necessarily a new feature right now, but just so that everybody knows about it. If you do the edit rename, or the same thing from the refactor, these all come off the refactor menu. I could come in here and rename this to whatever I want, this solution and the project. And here, if I do the project, I actually get these options to rename the folder and string literals. And I could even walk through here and edit these as I want to, do whatever I need to change, whatever I need to change. And then when I'm ready, just click next, and it goes through and updates everything. It'll check all my namespaces, do all that good stuff, because that's where we tend to get tripped up. So now you can rename everything. Solutions, projects, everything, no problems, nice and smooth. And that's that for running and renaming, the last little bit that we have. So yeah, it just takes it a minute, and then it'll work through and go ahead and build and find any little problems that might be in here. Yeah, just a little ghost error in here. Not related. So
Ghost error.
yeah, a little ghost error, not related sometimes when you make a change. So.
All right, very cool. Yeah, when this was introduced, I think it's almost like 2 years ago when this renaming project was introduced, but it's awesome. Okay, anything left?
Not here.
Oh, that was no.
Yeah, just tiny little things at the end. So running, renaming, all that good stuff.
All right, very cool. Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure as always.
Absolutely. Also, thank you everyone for watching.
Yeah, thanks everybody. I learned some ASL for Matt, just in case his audio cuts out. Sure.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, it's not going to be a release stream unless we have a few, robots and drop-offs and demo problems. It's that's how it works.
The one about resizing the Git log was particularly interesting, to be honest. I mean, I didn't expect that. Maarten knows I was swearing before, because first it worked and then I reopened the solution. So I think this will be something for the next bug fix release. I hope so, at least. Okay, let's add. Oh, where are the slides? The slides are gone.
Khalid, in the meanwhile, can we get one more dance?
How's
This
that?
is a thing now, isn't it?
Yeah. It's awesome. That's what I'm here for. If it's not for dance, I don't know why I'm here.
Neither do we. I mean, if it's not for dance, that's what I'm saying. Sorry, man.
Okay, let's put up the last slide. As always, well, again, first of all, thanks everyone for watching. We still want to recommend you to read our blog whenever you want. We continuously blog about new features. We also have webinars, etc. Just to help you improve in all kinds of ways in development, or maybe also just to showcase some new features, new projects, and stuff like that. If you like this content, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Like and subscribe. Keep this information also. Follow us on Twitter, all the dev advocates, of course. And with that, thanks once more for watching, and see you in the next one. Say bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Hi, everyone.